according to the latest South African Reconciliation Barometer, 79% of South Africans believe that leaders cannot be trusted to do what is right. In addition, 8 in 10 South Africans believe that national leaders are not concerned about what happens to ordinary people like themselves. Now, let's unpack this. We're now joined by Professor Mazwe Majola, a leadership expert from the Worldwide Institute of Leadership and Development. Prof, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. Now, when one looks at just the state of affairs in the country, particularly looking at the high unemployment rate, corruption levels, the extreme levels of poverty, is it surprising that almost 80% of South Africans believe that leaders just cannot be trusted to do what is right? What's your take on the latest barometer findings?
Yes, good afternoon, Unati. It's not surprising. It's something that is expected. It's something that is out there. However, it's very concerning, and I hope that leaders will take heed of this very important feedback and try to make amends and make some introspection as to where they are found wanting, that they will receive this report with grace and humility so that they can correct, because what is said out there from the public are perceptions which are very, very important in leadership. It's very, very concerning, because leadership is everything, and everything is leadership. So whenever and wherever there is a trust deficit towards country's leadership, it's not good at all.
And particularly when you look at 8 in 10 South Africans believe that national leaders are not concerned about what happens to ordinary people like themselves. One thinks of, statements like a principle is a principle until it costs you something. So in other words, 8 in 10 South Africans don't believe that they are seen essentially by their leaders, which is why things that are needed to happen on the ground are not happening and are not happening at a fast rate.
And the causes for that is it's a lack of accountability, lack of transparency from leaders, and also lack of actions and decisions. Because leadership is about actions. You can talk and make good speeches and make good policies and plans and strategies, but if all those are not executed and translated into actions, they will become zero. So, people are saying, we don't know what is happening, and that's why I'm saying really this should be very concerning to our leaders, because it means they are doing certain things, or they believe to be doing certain things, whether right or wrong. But from their side, of course, I'm sure they feel that they're doing correct things and they're in the right directions. But the people are saying differently. They're saying there's nothing that is happening. So to me, I think there's a high level of distrust, of despair and despondency and skepticism, which is really caused by this immense opacity, the secrecy that you'll find. Let's take, for example, and I know that the president spoke about it shortly when he was interviewed, the issue of cabinet ministers' performance assessment. The president did a noble job, a good thing in 2020 when he introduced this initiative and said, look, I'm going to sign performance agreements with the cabinet ministers for the sake of transparency and accountability. We want to see what they are doing. That was very good. However, up until now, he is refusing to release the assessment so that people may know who's doing good, who's not doing right, who needs to be, or think department that needs some improvements, and department that are lacking. All that thing, they contribute to this trust deficit, because if the president wants the people to trust him, and I'm really mentioning the president here because it's the number one, and leadership is exemplary. So if number one is doing things correctly and cabinet ministers are following him, obviously people will trust him. So the fact that he has been refusing to let it out there so that the public will know what is happening. So that lack of transparency and accountability and consequence management speaks volume to the trust and confidence of leaders.
And I'm glad you mentioned that, Prof, because the president, as ANC president, just mentioned that a few moments ago. So it is pertinent to this discussion, particularly if you've seen in the previous story we just played, speaking to young people that they must be provided with the right tools, they must be provided with the right skills, and they must be inspired, so that they will then, be enabled to build businesses. I mean, this becomes very difficult, especially, as it speaks to the youth, just given the slow pace of economic change and the persistent inequality, especially, that the barometer views as the major sources of division within the country. So you do need ministers to reveal what they are doing in terms of closing these gaps for not only young people, but for South Africans, if you look at just the number of problems that we are looking at.
Well, this indecisiveness of President Cyril Ramaphosa and the Mr. Nice, leader quality or leader style, it's really an Achilles heel towards him, because people want to know that who have you disciplined for the lack of performance? Who have you fired for the lack of performance? What has happened? So, but now, because he really protects people and defends people, and also his political party ANC, and then that is unfortunately killing him and destroying him. Because at some stage, you've got to come up and say, as a leader, I've taken these decisions, these unpopular decisions, because I cannot tolerate incompetence. I cannot tolerate leaders and cabinet ministers who are not putting service delivery as number one. I've done this, and then that will really make people to believe in him and see that he means business. But he can stand there and speak nicely and explain things, but as long as people don't see that, or as long as the words don't translate to deeds, that will always be a problem for him.